Hey guys, it's Mania by our Craft Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we are covering DZ set 10 for Drajeweled Ignis. So for those of you wondering, yes, I've already covered a Drajeweled Magnus deck, so a deck specifically focused on the strengths of Magnus and what he brings to the table. And now today we are focusing on the Ignis build, aka mainly built around Ignis, but still supporting the new Magnus stuff because Magnus is pretty much a better version of OG Drajeweled. So look at the start shot and see what we have. First today we have our energy generator. It is our ride deck crest. You might have ride deck crest in your ride deck. Our ride deck, when you ride, plus card to your crest zone. If you win second energy charge 3, continues to make 10 energy, auto begin to ride base energy charge 3, then actions per turn, energy boss 7, draw a card. Arm pretty solid, you get free 3 energy every turn. Even with second, get an extra 3 on top of that. And once you have 7 or more, you can blast all 7 of it in order to draw a card. Pretty solid. In this deck, we do have an energy charger, and we already have a card that blasts 3 energy to draw a card. So there will be times where you do end up using the energy blast 7 skill, and there are times where you won't use it. Either way, though, it's a very solid option to have in the deck for extra hand cards. Moving on to our starter, we have Julius Draco Kid, Glow. Grades with boost 5k shield, 6k base, auto and road pawn for second draw card. Standard starter, and that's about to free draw if you go second. You make this any starter you want. I chose to make it Glow because it fits the new Drajeweled line in terms of theming, especially because it is the Drajeweled new line canonical starter. You can also make it just OG Julius Draco Kid because none of the ride line specifically requires Glow. But again, I just like running the canonical ride line since Magnus is the grade 3 in the ride deck. Might as well make it the full canonical ride line. Moving on to our triggers, we have Over Trigger and Hades Dragon, Deity of Resentment, and Galmaga Held. Grades with boost 50k shield, 5k power. Over Trigger, remember triggering in your deck, reveal it, add trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose what means give a +1 melee for the turn. And if you reveal it during your jet check, activate the addition effect, which you get, you the player, during your turn. All your vanguards get 10,000 power and +1 critical to end of this fight. That is a very powerful ability because that means the second you sack it offensively, your vanguard will always have +10k and +1 critical during your turns, meaning it will always be double crit pressure. Considering the fact that this is Drajeweled in general, is going to inherently have crit pressure. So pretty solid that it can always make your vanguard double to triple crit base for aggressive pressure. You can make this Walnut to get more consistent multi-attacking, though this deck technically already has 3 different restanders in it, so you don't really need that. Or you could use this Foria to also have crit pressure for a turn, but also recycling as well. Though I choose Galmaga Held because no matter what, Drajeweled will always be the weakest unit, especially if you're not on Ignis. Magnus will always be the weakest by a long shot, so you want to be able to increase the numbers as consistently as possible. So Galmaga Held is the way I go for here. And for some reason, I've been on a trip with Galmaga Held this past 2 days. Like, I've recorded like 2 different matches, and I swear I keep sacking it offensively. Like, this has never happened so consistently before, but whatever. What have Galmaga Held? Moving on to our normal triggers, we have 3 Wowzraw Master Riley. Grades with boost 5k shield, 4k base, continues guard soak. Every opponent's vanguard is grade 3 guard at 5,000 to the shield. So she's a 10k shield, she's a draw trigger, so she helps increase your hand, which is really good for defensive options, especially because this deck teeters on the line of offensive and defensive. Because when I was building it, the way I designed the grade 1 lineup was specifically more aggressive, but still held back a little bit to have defensive prowess. But it was a real 50-50, and you can still tell that the aggressive is more showy. 3 of draw triggers to help mitigate that fact. Then we have 8 crit in total, 4 of them being Lightly Breath Dragon, grades with boost 50k shield, 5k base, makes any crit you want. And then the other crit I chose to make it was Connected Rampage Clen, so grades with boost 50k shield, 5k power. Typically, I put Stem Deviate in the slot because, you know, it can go to soul, and that way it increases your chance of having grade 0s in soul for either the 2 Drajeweled skills. So if you end up blasting one out, as long as you have a Stem Deviate in hand, you can use it on the next turn. Well, in this deck, I've kind of realized that I can consistently get a grade 0 into soul one way or another, and if you go Magnus into Ignis, automatically you have a guaranteed 4 cards into your soul, and you're going to automatically ride on top of Magnus, so automatically that's a guaranteed Ignis right there. So total of 8 crit for pressure, all of them being vanilla crits, but if you feel unconfident in the fact that you're going to be able to keep a grade 0 in soul, run Stem Deviate over Clen. And then 4 heal and Caper Companion, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Standing heal, and that's about to make it any heal you want, just to make a Caper Companion because, I don't know, it just is Michiru's heal. Even though it doesn't fit his style aesthetically, it does fit his personality, and I mean, I do like the idea of Caper Companion being the heal in this deck, so 4 heal for recovering. Moving on to our grade 1s, and here's where you can tell I had that weird split between offense, defense, and consistency. 2 of the consistency grade 1, Horde / Draco Kid, grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base, auto placed on rear guard circle, CB1 to check the top 7, show up to 1 grade 4 card of Drajeweled in the card name from among them, reveal per to hand, show off your deck. If you do not reveal a card, show up to 1 grade 4 from your hand, reveal it. If you revealed a card in your hand or your vanguard is already a grade 4 or greater Drajeweled, draw a card. Okay, this deck has preferred cards it wants to take up the CB with, which is why this card is at 2 copies, but it is at also 2 copies because the deck's whole point, this one specifically, is to go into Ignis. And every time I've played Horde / at a higher copy than 2, anytime that I see him, I will never hard draw into Ignis, nor will I ever hit him off the search. So I have him at 2 copies because that's a consistent number where I will either hard draw Ignis, or if I do have to use Horde / I'll pull Ignis off it. So 2 of him just to make sure that we can make it to grade 4. You can technically make this any grade 1 you want. It is just a filler slot, but I do like having Horde / in the deck because most times I don't have to use him, so he's just, you know, a vanilla 5k drop. But at the same time, if I really do need to place him to get Ignis, there he is. Next up, we have 2 copies of Composited Freaks. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base. This is the defensive grade 1. You can, again, tell that it's skewed considering our offensive grade 1's at 3 copies. So 2 Composited Freaks. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base, continues guard circle. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Drajeweled, it gets 5000 shield. So procs on both Ignis and Magnus being a 10k shield once you hit grade 3 or higher. So pretty solid there. And then act drop zone. If your vanguards are grade 3 or greater Drajeweled, bind it, choose a grade 3 or greater card from your drop zone, put it to soul. All around pretty solid because it can always guarantee that you'll either get a free grade 3 into soul for Magnus or a free grade 3/grade 4 into soul for Ignis. Basically guaranteeing you that you'll be able to pull off those skills as long as you have the other 3 grades in soul /4 grades in soul. So honestly, pretty solid card here. And again, it's a 10k shield, so you can use it defensively, or you can just use a discard file like I do most of the time, and then just fill up your drop zone with it. And then when you eventually get to the point where you got to put something into soul, it'll already be there for you. So 2 of Composited Freaks for defense /consistency, 2 of Horde Slash for consistency, and then 3 of Illusionary Lantern Demonic Lady Folklore for aggro. I mean, its skill is more defensive than it is offensive, but the fact that it's a grade 1 you can play on turn 1, yeah, that's what I mean by aggro. So a grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base, auto placed on rearguard circle from the hand specifically, energy charge 1. Unfortunately, it can't proc when placed from soul, and there's a card in the deck that calls from soul, but I mean, it still gets you free energy if she's placed from hand. And then auto rearguard, and that she boosted anything, whether it's vanguard or rearguard. If you energy blast with 3 or more times for the cost of your card's ability this turn, whether it's your vanguard, which in this case is not, whether it's your one really good rearguard, or whether it's your energy generator, you can end up retiring her in order to draw a card. All around pretty solid because you'll pretty much always be energy blasting 3 once you at least hit grade 3 with Drajeweled Magnus, whether you're playing it off of the grade 2 the energy blast or whether you're playing it off the energy generator. So she's always going to be a free drop to help increase your hand and make sure you can survive to your Ignis turn. That's kind of the whole point of the deck. But again, you can also be super aggressive with her and call her down in your early game on turn 1, so that way you can attack your opponent's grade 1 vanguard with Folklore while also energy charging at the same time to set you up to energy generator, use your skill on turn 2 if you win second. All around Folklore, very solid grade 2 to both have offensively, but also just consistently for being able to increase your hand card amount after retiring her, but also be able to up your energy count as well just by simply being placed. So solid 3 for me. Then of course, being a deck that runs Ignis, we obviously have to have 4 copies of this guy. Wise Demonic Lordling Varpula, grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base, auto rearguard when you soul blast 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your vanguard's ability, shove it to soul to draw a card, then choose up to 1 grade 4 card from your hand, reveal it. If you did reveal a card or your vanguard is already a grade 4 or greater with Drajeweled in the card name, choose over rearguards, and if your rearguard did not stand by a card ability this turn, stand it. All around pretty solid because it can proc off both from Magnus' Soul Blast and Ignis' Soul Blast, and bare minimum, it just goes to soul to draw you a card, so it gets a grade 1 back in soul. But then if you have the grade 4 on vanguard or a copy of it in hand, you can then stand a rearguard, which is good because no matter what, you want to be able to do as many attacks as possible in this deck. This deck can consistently get 4 or 5 attacks a turn depending on what your board looks like. Varpula pretty much will always guarantee it's at 5, and it saves you a CB because your 2 restanders are Rockagore and Lizarogurg here. So like say for example you have both of them on the board, but you only have 1 CB available, well you can use Varpula to stand one of them and to make sure that Varpula stands at first, and then the other one can stand via paying the CB cost, and boom, you got your 5 attacks for 1 less CB. All around Varpula, very solid grade 1 to have in the deck, gets you a grade 1 back into soul after you already soul blast 4 cards for either Drajeweled, and it replaces itself with a draw, and it can get you a free rearguard stand, so easy 4 up. Then we have 4 PGs and Repelled Malice Dragon, grade 1 boost 0 shield, 6k base, continue Sceptral, first Sentinels, and deck, and always put on guard circle, choose over units, it cannot be hit in the battle. If your hand's 2 more cards, you choose a card from hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing to specify basically means if this one or more card is in your hand, place on guard circle, you don't have to go great, because that means you'd be super aggressive in the early game. Again, spam the Everliving Howler Folklore and maybe Varpula if you don't think your opponent can kill it, or if you can get it back into your hand. And then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw down Repelled Malice Dragon, give him the middle finger, you'd be good to go. Auron is a very great defensive card to have in the deck, especially with a deck that kind of has a low guard ceiling in general. So being able to throw down a card that can block any big attack is incredible. You can make this card Ridicule Disruptor, or you can make it Riskill Hate Dragon. They have the exact same skills, Repelled Malice, but I made it Repelled Malice because it came out close to the time of OG Drajewel's release, so 4 of RPGs. Moving on, we have our last grade 1 in the deck, 1 of in the right deck, none in the main deck of Jewel Core Dragon Glint, grade 1 boost 5k shield, aka base, auto rolled upon by specifically Demonic Stone Dragon Jewel Neil Luster. Again, I still hate Luster more than I like the original, but I mean, it's required for Glint, who I do like, so take it as you will. Check the top 5, choose up to 2 cards with different grades from one of them, yeet them to soul, and shuffle your deck. All around pretty solid because it can grab any 2 cards, they don't have to be specifically normal units, so if you do see a trigger in a grade 2, you can send a trigger in a grade 2. Don't know why, every time I pulled this skill off, regardless of the 4 Drajeweled decks I have on tabletop, it will always consistently hit Lizarogurg in the top 5. I will never understand why it does this, but okay, cool. Glint pretty much hard guarantees me a grade 2, and then it tends to get me a Magnus and Soul, which is still good, because it sets up for your first grade 3 turn to have Magnus, and again, because the whole point is to go into Ignis, it's not that bad losing out on Persona, right? So 1 of Glint in the ride deck, very solid grade 2 for just guaranteeing more or less that you're going to be able to pull off Magnus on your first grade 3 turn, and adds a little bit of offensive pressure to the deck passively. So 1 of in the ride deck of Glint. Moving on to our grade 2s, we run 4 copies of Soul Severing Demonic Spear Knight Knight Zagon. Don't know why that's his name, but okay. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when placed on rearguard circle during your main phase, you may soul charge 1. Not a mandatory soul charge, it's a free soul charge, so you don't have to pay a cost for it. And if you're afraid of decking out or you think your next drive check was going to be a trigger, you don't have to soul charge. And then you can choose up to one grade 4 card from your hand and reveal it. If you revealed a card or your Vanguard is already a grade 4 grade or Drajeweled in the card name, choose up to one different card name from this unit with a grade less than equal to your Vanguard from the soul and call it to rearguard circle. At the end of the turn, put the called unit back into your soul. I used to misplay with this card because I didn't realize that it always had to send it back to soul regardless. I just thought that if your Vanguard wasn't a Drajeweled, it stays out, or then it goes back to soul, but if it was a Drajeweled, it would stay out, like how Vedrock is with Vladimir, but that's not how it works. So either way though, being able to soul charge for free is great, and again, it's not a mandatory soul charge, and it can still superior call something out from soul as long as you have that grade 4, whether you soul charge or not. And it's pretty much your way to, like, you know, pull the Lizarogrug you send to soul because it always shows up with Glint for some reason, or Rockagore to guarantee your multi-attack, or like how I did in my most recent game, superior call out Varpula and put it in the back row. That way you have 2 separate boosters and a way to restand against someone that locked you from a rear guard, screw you Artasaria. And then continues rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's a Drajeweled, it gets boost. Cool. So whether you're on Ignis or Magnus, it gets boost, so it's a 10k booster, not bad. And again, it gets you board presence as long as you have a grade 4 and somewhere in either in your hand or on your Vanguard circle, and it gets you a free soul charge as well, which could end up guaranteeing you Magnus on your first grade 3 turn. Very solid grade 2 to have in the deck for all around board consistency, so it's a very good 4 for me. Then we have 4 copies of Demonic Stone Dragon Rockagore, so grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base. Auto rearguard once per turn when this unit attacks into a grade 3 or greater unit. If your soul has 4 more different grades in it, it gets 10,000 power for the turn, so 20k swing once it swings into a grade 3 or greater, and the best part is that stays for the turn, which matters for the second ability, which is auto rearguard, not once per turn, mind you. So God forbid Bushi ever gave either Drajeweled the ability to Soul Blast 4 twice in the same move, but when you Soul Blast 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your Vanguard's ability, if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, counter boss 1 stand it. Only usable if you Soul Blast 4 or more at the same time. Pretty much gets you a restand for a simple CB1, only downsides to both of its skill being your opponent has to be a grade 3 or greater, which this card mitigates, but we'll go over that in a second. And again, it's a 20k swing, which is good because typically with Drajeweled, you want to swing with your boosters first, because then after Drajeweled swings, your opponent's Vanguard's at 0 power. That way when you do your restands, I mean, yeah, they're going to lose on the power of the boosters, but they still get their inherent plus 10k from their first skill, meaning you can bully down their 0 power Vanguard with a 20k swing. All around, not a bad grade 2 at all. Allows for additional aggressive pressure with just its numbers, but also allows you to get multi-attack as well for only a simple CB, so very solid 4 up. Moving on, we have 4 copies of Demonic Stone Dragon Lizarogrug, so grade 2 and set 5k shield, 10k base. This is the evolved form of Rockagore, who shares almost the exact same skills verbatim as Rockagore, so it shares the standard auto once per turn when it attacks into a grade 3 or greater unit. If your soul has 4 or more different grades in it, it gets 10,000 power for the turn, so like Rockagore would be a 20k swing into a grade 3 or greater. The third skill, however, is different by small wording, and again, it's still not a once per turn, so if Bushi ever did give Drajeweled 2 different abilities to Soul Blast 4, there you go. Auto rear guard. When you Soul Blast 4 more cards at the same time for the cost of your ability with Drajeweled in the card name, counter boss 1, stand it. It can restand, but it doesn't require the opponent to be at grade 3, though it now requires you to Soul Blast with a Drajeweled, but you're going to do that anyways because it's a Drajeweled deck. Basically meaning, if your opponent's at grade 2, you can just call down 2 Lizarogrugs to your side, swing with them first, then swing with Magnus into your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard, Soul Blast 4 cards, drop their grade 2 down to 0, and then double restand your Lizarogrugs, and now you have 5 attacks on your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard, and 3 of them are coming at your opponent's Vanguard who has 0 power. All around, very solid grade 2 to have just for that reason alone, because again, it's a beat stick once your opponent hits grade 3, and it can multi-attack regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, as long as you're on a Drajeweled and Soul Blast 4 more cards. But the last ability, which is an upgrade over Rockagore as well, auto when placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Drajeweled, whether it's Ignis or Magnus, Energy Blast 3, draw a card. Again, pretty solid because you get a free 3 energy every turn, so that's just automatically convert your free resource you get to draw. So basically you draw 2 times a turn, which is honestly pretty solid, and that's not a once per turn either. So if you want to just spam down Lizarogrug like 24/7 in one turn, go ahead. Or, you know, you can pull out from soul via Zagon because it doesn't have to be placed from hand, and you can still get that draw. Very solid grade 2 to have, as it pretty much gets you a second copy of Rockagore in deck, so you have a total of 8 of them, but at the same time, it's a little bit more consistent because not only does it have an on-place that lets you draw, but now it can restand while your opponent's at grade 2, making a very solid 4 to have in tandem with Rockagore. Everything in this deck is going to have a CB problem. The only cards in the deck that cost CB are Lizarogrug, Rockagore, and specifically Hard Slash. You almost never use Hard Slash, and Varpula can make one of these 2 free either turn. So yeah, total of 8 copies for them in total. On to our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the rag, none in the main deck, of Demonic Stone Dragon Junior Luster. Again, hate this card, but whatever. Grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base. Auto rolled upon by a grade 3 card Drajeweled in the card name, soul charge 1, and if your soul has Jewel Core Dragon Glint in it, you draw a card. This skill is almost the exact same as OG Junior, where it got you a soul charge guaranteed, but the difference was that it didn't require Glint in soul, it just required you to have 3 or more different grades, which it would always have itself, obviously. Probably the grade grade 1 and then guaranteed to lead the grade 0. So you're always going to get that draw guaranteed, but cool, the fact that they changed its draw skill to require glint, that's fine. The part I hate is its second skill. So continues rearguard. During turn of your Vanguard to Demonic Jewel Dragon Emperor Drajeweled Magnus, this unit gets 5,000 power. So 15k during your turn, specifically when you're on Magnus, again in a deck where you want to be on Ignis, where the OG was on hit Soul Charge 1, so it added on hit pressure on your grade 2 turn that could guarantee you that you pull off Magnus on first grade 3 turn, but whatever, you need it for glint, and glint is just really good. I'm not saying that OG Jewel Core wasn't good either, I just like glint more in this case. But cool, being able to get 5k is solid, I guess, if you really brick and you don't have either of these two, but you have access to Zagon and Ignis, so you do a cheeky play and pull out a Luster, I guess. It's not the best play in the world, and it's definitely not a good one, but I mean, it is what it is if you have to do it. So one of Luster in the right deck, I guess, just to benefit off of glint. Moving on to our grade 3s, we have 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck of Demonic Jewel Dragon Emperor Drajeweled Magnus. So everyone knows that I always leave the right deck grade 3 for last when I talk about grade 3s. So I can already see a lot of comments talking about why I don't run that one very specific grade 3, the one that has like the 15k shield and only works with grade 4s. I'll get to that after I explain this. So grade 3 turns out Persona Ride, 13k base. Auto Vanguard at the beginning of your ride phase, choose any 2 cards from your drop zone, put them to soul. So gets you half this cost for either his skill or pretty much hard guarantees Ignis, because again, at least on first grade 3 turn, because again, you get any 2 cards from drop zone to soul. Then if you're going to ride on top of him with Ignis, you automatically have Drajeweled Magnus in soul, so that's a grade 3. And then Ignis pulls any 2 cards it wants from drop zone into soul, so that's 5 different grades right there. So the only thing that's screwing you over is what's in your drop zone. And then Auto Vanguard at the beginning of your battle phase, if your soul has a Drajeweled in its card name, whether it's Magnus or whether it's Ignis, all your front wings get 5,000 power for the turn. That procs whether opponents at grade 2 or grade 3, so you can aggro the grade 2 Vanguard a little bit, especially again with the double Lizard Greek play I was mentioning earlier, which is solid. And again, if you end up seeing a Magnus into soul off of your soul charge skills, it's not the worst thing in the world, because again, you're not really meant to Persona in this deck, but it's an option there if you want it. But again, having extra Magnus in the deck means you have an extra chance of getting 5k and not losing on Ignis in the process. And then finally, the skill, which I will admit became a lot more useful than what I thought it was. Even though I talk about using it this way, I just never do it, and the one time I did it, it was actually the thing that won me the game. Auto Vanguard. When this unit attacks into a Vanguard, soul blast 4 cards of different grades. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguards till end of the turn. Power becomes 0 regardless of its grade. And if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 graded, then it gets +1 critical. So regardless, it always drops the opponent's Vanguard's power to 0, which is great, because that means they're always going to have to use an extra 5k compared to other Drajewels that always drop the power to 1. So being able to force an extra 5k could be the difference between winning and losing in terms of aggro pressure. Again, double restand on grade 2 turn. And then if your instant critical did increase by this effect, and your gem has 4 or more cards in it, or your Persona this turn, so AK, as long as your opponent's at grade 3 or grade and you did either 4 or more damage every Persona road, choose one of your rear guards which are Demonic Jewel Dragon in its card name, which would only apply to Magnus, because you cannot call Ignis to the rear guard while you're on Magnus. It gets auto rear guard once per turn. When this unit attacks anything, ditch a hand card, basically the drive check from Magnus, and then this unit's drive becomes 1, and it also performs drive checks until end of that battle, until end of turn. Basically gives you 4 drives, meaning no matter which one you're on between Magnus and Ignis, as long as you have Magnus's full ability active, you're always going to have triple drive, which is pretty solid. Cool card all around. Has no CB, gets you 2 soul. Unfortunately, it is more of a passive skill than it is more of an active skill compared to OG, like Demonic Jewel Fang Drajeweled, and not the trial deck one, the one from set 7, so the one that could soul charge in the main phase and try to actively get you the ability off. But I mean, still, pretty solid thing, give front row 5k regardless. Solid that it can pretty much guarantee Ignis the first grade 3 turn, and then it always drops power to 0, and you can pull this off on your first grade 3 turn if your opponent's at grade 3. Because how it won me the game one time is my opponent aggroed me hard, and I just chose out the PEG because I knew I could survive, so I went to 5, and then I somehow got an extra Magnus onto my board on my first grade 3 turn. Then I pretty much used Magnus, and then I gave the other rearguard Magnus the drive checks because it is a Demonic Jewel Dragon, and then I won because I sacked triple crits. Yeah, I mean, yes, it was RNG, but still. This is not the Artasaria game. It did happen during the Artasaria game, but this is not the Artasaria game where I won that off that play. So, all around, very solid grade 3 to have. Has a bunch of skills that pretty much activate for free. Pretty much guarantees that your opponent will always feel the force of Magnus regardless of which Drajeweled you are on. And if, for the record, if you did Persona Ride, it pretty much has the same benefit as Ignis, because Ignis gets 15k to front row. This will inherently get 15k to front row because, again, assuming you Persona Ride means you have a Drajeweled in soul. So take that as you will. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck. Now onto the reasoning why I don't run that grade 3. When I was building this deck, I felt really weird because I was pretty much just pulling stuff over from my other Drajeweled deck, the Magnus-based one. And when I was doing that, I did think about putting in that one grade 3, but for some reason my body just told me no, it's gonna be smarter aggressively to put in Drajeweled Magnus. And again, when you could tell when I was building this deck, I was thinking about which pathway was best between aggro and defense, and ultimately I did choose aggro, which is why I chose not to put that grade 3 in the deck, which I see as more consistency / defense plays. And for some reason, that's what won me the game, because for the record, that grade 3 does not have Demonic Jewel Dragon in the card name. Yes, that was a one-of chance of it happening, but the fact that it's happening consistently is really interesting. So it fits my playstyle is what I'm getting at. And then finally, we have 4 copies of the main card in the deck, Demonic Jewel True Dragon Drajeweled Ignis. Grade 4. Triple Drive, 13k base. The card I was so disappointed with the anime because they said when it first got released it was a TCG exclusive, and then Michiru came back. I wasn't disappointed that Michiru came back. I was disappointed that they used Ignis with Michiru because it kind of like held an aura that it was only going to be in the TCG, and then it showed up, and in my opinion, at least it ruined the match with Taizo, and then they immediately ditched it for Magnus. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll pull it out against Akina. I kind of hope they do, because if they don't, Ignis got shafted real hard. Anyways, continues. It can only be written from a unit with Drajeweled in the card name, which doesn't matter. You're always going to be riding on top of it with the Drajeweled. Auto Vanguard, beginning of your battle phase, choose 2 cards from your drop zone, put them to soul. Then if your soul has 4 more different grades, your entire farm gets 15k for the turn. So, I mean, again, at least on the turn you ride from Magnus, you're pretty much guaranteed to pull off its full ability, but cool. 15k to the front row, pretty much giving you Magnus's full skill the second it's placed for free. And the last ability is Auto Vanguard. When its abilities cost to be paid, you may put a Drajeweled in its card name in your soul that may be soul passed as a any grade from grade 0 to grade 4. AK, say for example, you have 2 Magnuses in soul, 1 grade 2, 1 grade 1, and 1 grade 0, so you don't have a grade 4. One of those Magnuses can be soul blasted as a grade 4, and it can be soul blasted as a grade 1 through 2 and grade 0 as well if you wanted to. Anyways, when attacks on anything, soul blast 5 cards of different grades, retire all of your opponent's back or rear guards till end of the turn. This unit gets +1 critical, and you increase or decrease the power of all of your opponent's front row units to 0. So basically, your opponent loses their back row. This mofo gets a standard +1 crit of Drajeweled, and your opponent's entire front row goes down to 0. Meaning, if you can't kill your opponent that same turn after you Ignis because maybe you didn't pull crits in your drive check and your opponent PG'd, just murk off the rear guards. They're at 0 base power. They're gonna die anyways. All around, very solid grade 3 to have. 15k to front row, just pure aggressive power right there. It straight up murks your opponent's board in so many ways, and it still has the inherent crit pressure. And with the only downside to this card being the random, it can only be written from a Drajeweled, because I can only imagine that there's some BS deck that would actually benefit from having Ignis in it, but not having any of the Drajeweled in it, with all the different soul charging they could do. Very amazing grade 3, gets a hell load of numbers really quickly, and pretty much pressures your opponent out for lethal the turn is placed, and if by some miracle of God they survive the first one, they're probably not surviving the second one, especially if you've been Lister or Goog / Rocker Gore spamming them the entire game. 4 of Ignis for offensive pressure. There's no reason not to have this card be the main finisher of the deck, or just like the main focal point of the deck. And without further ado, this is for this one. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. Honestly, the deck is very fun to play. Like I said when I was explaining the reason why I didn't put in that 1 grade 3, when I was building this deck, yes, the grade 1s I was just copying over from my OG Magnus deck, but when I was building it, I felt really weird with it. Like, it was good to put in the aggro stuff because it felt like it fully fit my style more, even though putting in 3 Persona rides for a deck that is meant to be on Magnus seems really stupid, and I agree it does. My instinct took over, and lo and behold, this deck can somehow consistently get a Magnus on board. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but consistently get a Magnus on board, do drive checks, force out my opponent's guard power, and then also build up defense power at the same time. Don't know how I did that instinctively, but whatever. Either way though, I'm going to this one here. Hope all of you guys enjoyed. Definitely build around your playstyle, because this deck can definitely shift depending on how you want to play it, whether it's more aggressive, more defensive, or more consistency based. So I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all then. Don't forget to set up your vanguards.